Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tales of the Pod podcast. My name's Michaela, I'm your host.
Your co-host Nick, how's it going, guys?
So I'm super excited for this episode this week because we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is underrated horror movies.
Ones that flew under the radar.
Yeah, and I think this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I love finding underrated gems in the horror community. Ones that maybe didn't get a theater release, or they're not as big as, like, you know, The Exorcist, The Conjuring, whatever.
Yeah.
Nobody really talks about them, but I think they're still well deserving, and I feel like so satisfied when I find an underrated horror movie that's good.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, it's always nice to go through like the movies that didn't hit like the big screen,
Right.
or get the big debut that like the some of the other ones got and everything, or don't have like a big cult following yet or whatever.
Right.
So it's always nice. And a lot of these two are also going to be kind of like B movies as well. So
Right.
there's not. I guess there's not a lot in our list that are B movies, but you might consider them B movies, so it's really kind of hard to say.
I only picked a couple that are like B movies, but we'll definitely do a whole episode probably devoted to our favorite B movies because that could definitely be its own episode. We kind of figured we'd put them all together, and then we're like, no, there's enough to do 2 episodes with that.
Yeah, there's hundreds and hundreds of B movies out there for sure.
And I love a good B movie. That's one of the most funnest parts of the genre for sure.
Oh yeah, I love B movies.
I did just want to touch on, we have talked about a lot of underrated horror movie gems in a few episodes before, so if you haven't seen those episodes, go check them out. We're not going to talk about them here just because we touched on them previously.
Yeah, we're trying to give you guys new
content,
new
essentially.
Movies, I guess, to go watch.
But if you haven't seen them by now, definitely go check out The Void, The Autopsy of Jane Doe, The Last Shift. Highly recommend the Hell House franchise if you haven't seen it, and The Lodge as well. A lot of those can be found on Tubi, which I love Tubi. If you don't have it by now and you're a horror fan and you're listening to this podcast, go download it.
Yes.
It's 100% free. It's got a sweet selection of horror movies for sure.
Tubi is great, and then obviously like Shudder, and then there's also Arrow films. They have a lot of like underrated and like B movies, foreign movies, and stuff like that you can watch, and it's pretty cheap too. I think it's only like $2 a month or something like that.
For sure. But we're going to touch on some different ones today, give you guys a little bit of a different perspective, and show you some more underrated movies to check out for sure.
Yeah, so Michaela, why don't you go first?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. So I am starting out strong with the first movie I picked, and I want to talk about Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yeah.
If anybody hasn't...
B-movie.
It's been termed as the B movie. If anybody hasn't seen Killer Clowns from Outer Space, shout out to my dad. Please go watch this movie immediately as soon as you're done with this podcast. I promise you it's worth it. So essentially this movie came out in 1988, and it's all about these extraterrestrial aliens, but they look like clowns.
Yeah.
And even the word clown in this movie is spelled with a K, if that shows you anything.
Right.
And they do all these like corny, funny things, like they kill people with a popcorn gun.
Oh yeah.
Popcorn is like their... It's all like circus clown themed, so popcorn is like their species, like larva, or their eggs. When they kill people, they wrap them up in a cotton candy cocoon. Their spaceship is just a giant circus tent.
Yeah,
and it lands in like the middle of this town, and like these teenagers see it while they're at like Lover's Lane or Makeout Point, whatever.
Right, yeah.
And they hear a noise, and they're, typical
Let's
movie.
go investigate.
Yeah. Typical scary movie. But the popcorn gun, I guess, is my favorite part of this movie, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
And this movie didn't even get a theater release. It went straight to VHS.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
When it came out. It had no theater, which I'd be curious to see what kind of theater release it would have gotten, like what kind of reception it would have had, maybe if it went to theaters.
Sure, yeah.
The score on this on IMDb isn't that bad. It's a 6.2 out of 10.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Which is more than I expected, for sure.
Sure.
But this movie definitely has a cult following. I always see T-shirts with this movie on it, and this movie has had some kind of impact on the horror genre. I think if you know, like it's a good movie.
Oh yeah. It's a cult classic.
It's a cult classic, and I even found that how Universal does like Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah.
They had a section with killer clowns, like their ice cream truck and like.
Oh really? That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, like a vending machine and stuff. So,
that's so cool.
I mean, it's an older movie, 1988, but definitely not forgotten about. I think it's still, if anything, it's regained a new cult following now that people are finding out about it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But this movie was on TV one night on one of those random channels, and I watched it, and I just...
Oh, yeah, no, I remember it was always, like, on, like, Chiller, I want to say, had it. I think that's
Chiller
where I
probably
first
did,
saw
for
it.
sure.
It might have been sci-fi, but I'm pretty sure it was Chiller. But,
yeah.
Oh yeah, it's definitely like a classic, feel-good movie.
These two brothers like spent their whole budget on this movie essentially, and then they never came out with anything else. Mm-hmm. They did this movie, and I guess there was supposed to be a reboot in 2019, some kind of like Killer Clowns from Space 3D. Which probably was a good idea. It wasn't made because I think this is like a beloved cult classic and it should stay where it is.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you.
But this is just like a comfort movie for me. I love this movie. It's unique. It's one of the kind. Like, you're not going to see another one like it, that's for sure.
Oh, no, I definitely agree. Yeah, it's definitely, you're going to be like, what did I just watch?
Like, when they whip out the popcorn gun, you're like, okay.
Like cotton candy, like...
These people are literally wrapped up in a pink cotton candy cocoon.
Yeah.
When they get taken to the circus tent, it's actually a spaceship.
It is funny.
And I would have just died to see, like, the pitch, if this had gone to, like, theaters and got a theater release, and the director's trying to pitch this movie and be like, okay, hear me out. They're aliens, but they're clowns.
Right.
They have a circus tent.
I know, and it's funny too, because I mean, it's meant to be a funny movie. I don't think they were making this movie to make this like a serious, like, this is like, a crazy alien clown.
Like, we're gonna scare people,
I think it was more meant to be like poke fun at horror, which is always fun too. I got actually one horror comedy that's also like flew under the radar too.
This is probably the most B movie I put on here. The rest of them are kind of actual hidden horror movie gems, but I want to talk about this because this is one of my favorite underrated horror movies for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, so it's actually funny you picked that one because the sheriff in that movie, remember the old sheriff that's like, damn kids, he like hated all the kids and everything like that? He's actually, in my movie that I'm going to talk about here, he's one of the main characters in that too. So the movie I picked was 1983's Curtains. It's a Canadian slasher film directed by Richard Kupka, and it was derived from a screenplay by Robert Guza Jr. I think John Verdon is the guy that plays the sheriff and plays the main guy in here. So this movie's it's not really like your typical slasher film. It's more it's not like the kids going camping or like babysitting or something like that. It's not like super ultra violent. It's more like kind of like adults that are getting picked off. So basically, just a quick run through of the movie. It starts out with this director, Jonathan Stryker. He's making this new movie, and he wants his like star actress to get a feel for the role, which is this woman. I forget the name of the woman. I think her name is like Andra or something like that. It's kind of a funny name, and so he basically thinks or tells her to basically get committed to an insane asylum so you can like method act the role. So she go ahead and does that. But while she's in the insane asylum, he's doing new casting for a younger, more attractive female to play this character. So he's holding, it's kind of misogynistic. He's very misogynistic in this movie. So he's holding like, I don't know what they'd be called, like the casting, I guess, for the role. And there's like 6 different women that are interested in the role. They go out to this like a remote cabin, like lodge thing out in the Canadian wilderness, and all of a sudden, this like killer in this old. If you got to watch the movie, I can't really describe it. But it's like this old hag mask starts like killing them, and throughout that, the woman that was in the mental hospital escapes and comes to the lodge. And is like mad at the director, and he's like, "Don't worry about it. This was all part of the plan, whatever." So you kind of like don't really know what's going on through the whole movie. You're like, "Is she the killer?" Because she's like, the killing started as soon as she got there, but then it's like, no, because you see her when like people are getting killed. There's like no way that could be her. It's more kind of like a crime thing, but it's a great movie. The masks, the mask that the killer wears is just like awesome. It's kind of loosely like Italian giallo inspired. A little bit more like violent, though, I would say.
It's terrifying. I just looked it up.
Yeah,
Is it the mask?
Yeah, that's the mask. Yeah, it's like an old hag woman, and I think like a sickle's used most of the time, and then I think maybe a knife. I'm not going to spoil the ending because you do find out who the killer is, and it's actually a person you did not think it would be. So it's a very good movie. It actually didn't. It did pretty bad. I mean, it was a $3.7 million budget, and it only made $1 million at the box office, so they lost money. But I think definitely nowadays it's considered a cult classic, and it is it's not like a cheesy, like, Killer Clowns from Outer Space kind of horror movie.
Okay, easy.
I mean, it is a little corny in some parts, but it definitely is okay, yeah, I'm interested in seeing what's going on here, Not saying yours isn't, but, I mean, I think there's a big difference between yours and this one.
Listen, I came out of the gate strong with Killer Clowns, but my other movies are a little more serious and a little more scary.
Sure.
I wanted to address that one right away.
Right. So that's really all I got for that. But yeah, go give it a watch. It's a good one.
So for my next movie, I did one that I think is still on Tubi. Definitely a really, really good movie. I watch it at least a couple times a year. It's called The Taking of Deborah Logan.
Mm-hmm.
And something about old people with dementia or like Alzheimer's or something is just inevitably creepy.
Oh yeah, old people in scary movies are just creepy in general.
And something about like their mind not being there is just very creepy. Like if anybody's seen like The Visit, that's the first one that comes to my mind. That's a little more popular because it was an M. Night Shyamalan.
Yes,
kind of reminds me about that, but a little bit different. So this movie came out in 2014. It's a found footage movie, and essentially it's about a film. I think it's a film student, and she has a group of people, and they kind of do like a mini documentary on this woman named Deborah Logan because her daughter is like, she's really progressing rapidly with her Alzheimer's, and I think it was for a school project or something that she had to record it. So upon initial appearance, like Deborah just appears like a cute little old woman that's suffering from Alzheimer's. She maybe misplaces her gardening tool, things like that, and then it just kind of gets more and more sinister as time progresses. And I don't think I want to talk about the plot twist. This movie has a really good plot twist at the end, so definitely go check it out. But as soon as the crew gets there, they kind of just start dropping like flies because they start seeing how creepy she is with her behavior, and they're like, "No, screw this, I'm out."
Yeah.
And the main girl was like, "No, I'm staying. Like, I want to see this through to the end." And this movie has some scenes, like the end scene with the cave. Specifically, some scenes in this movie you just will never get out of your head.
Yeah, it's pretty.
They're terrifying.
Like, whoa.
It kind of. Because she was, like, involved with some things earlier in her life, obviously before her mind was gone. She was involved in some things. She was a switchboard operator, so she kind of knew all the drama going on in the town.
Yes.
And then when her mind started to lose it, everything she knew and all the information she was privy to kind of started to come to the surface in different ways that she couldn't really express.
Right.
And then there's, like, a creepy neighbor involved, and he's trying to be like, leave her alone, don't record anything. And it goes, honestly, it just goes balls to the wall.
Yeah, it starts off a huge plot twist. Yeah. I'm not going to say what it is, but you find out the neighbor and her did some things that
and it's all being brought to the surface because now she can't protect them anymore.
Or she's I guess I can't. Protect them
she can't keep that a secret anymore.
Right.
But yeah, something about old people in horror movies, especially when they don't know what they're doing and their mind's gone, is so creepy. And this movie does it so well for being such a low budget, for being found footage. And just for not, nobody really knows about this movie, I feel.
Yeah.
I think it's on Shudder and maybe Tubi, but not a very popular movie at all. But I love the premise of it. Very unique. I think the acting's good. The special effects are good.
No, I take it. I mean, it's definitely a creepy movie, and it's very well done. You're watching it, and you're like, oh, I don't know about all this.
You're watching it, and you're like, oh, she's a cute little grandma, and then it just
Yeah, she starts rapidly declining, and it's kind of sad too to just watch that happen because they do a really good job at capturing how that happens. But this is obviously she's not just dementia. There's something else going on.
Yeah, something more sinister. And then it's was she possessed almost? Is something possessed her? Was it Alzheimer's? And then you kind of have that debate once you watch it as well.
Right.
Maybe something she did.
Yeah. Exactly.
She was involved with different almost like a satanic cult. She was involved in, so it's is she being possessed by that, or is it just the memories that she's been repressing all these years?
Right.
And I feel bad for her daughter, too. Her daughter's just watching her thinking it's Alzheimer's, but she's doing some weird shit. I think she was eating dirt at one point.
Yeah, she was eating dirt, and then that one scene where she's they have the camera set up in the kitchen, and she's just walking around, and all of a sudden it switches, and she's just up on top of the cabinets. Yeah. Just in a split second, that's whoa, and they're how the hell did she do that,
Yep, and a couple of the film crew was nope, she's not a cute little grandma anymore. No. We're out of here.
No, that's definitely a good one. I do enjoy that.
I love that movie. I've shown that movie to a couple people. I love that movie.
Mm-hmm. That is a good one. All right, so for my next one, I picked 1973's La Rose de Feu, which is also The Iron Rose. You probably heard me talk about this one a little bit last week's episode. I just wanted to go in a little bit more detail with it because it's actually a very good horror drama. And the thing that's awesome about this movie, a lot of people are going to watch it and think it's boring because there's really no talking. It's you're just kind of watching, but that's like I think the whole point what he was going for. It was directed by Jean Rollin. And basically, just a quick run through of the movie. So it's a young man and a woman. They meet at this wedding reception. They arrange a date. They go like on a picnic, go bicycle riding, and then like as they're riding their bikes, they see this like abandoned, well not abandoned, but this older cemetery somewhere as they're riding their bikes. So they decide to go into it, and they're walking through. They see some like, there's some characters there. Again, there's really not a lot of dialect. I mean, they're talking a little bit, but nothing like, full on conversation.
That kind of makes it more creepy.
It is. It's very, it sets a very good tone for the movie. Like some of the things they see, there's like an old woman that's kind of like wandering around the cemetery in like a black veil. There's a clown that lays like flowers. It's like, looks like Pogo the clown laying flowers on like a grave.
Is it a killer clown from outer space?
No, it's not a killer clown from outer space, unfortunately. And then actually, there's Jean Rollin actually makes a cameo. He's a man wandering around the cemetery. I think he's actually kind of like the caretaker of the cemetery. Okay. And you see him, and like they kind of exchange words briefly. But essentially, what ends up happening is the couple, they go down into this crypt. They do make love in the crypt, and then when they come out of the crypt, it's nighttime, and then basically what happens then is they just start, like, fear sets in. Because, I mean, it's creepy. You're trapped in a cemetery somewhere in Paris, the French countryside, and, you're hearing stuff, you think you're seeing stuff, So basically, the girl goes crazy first. She locks her boyfriend in the crypt. He suffocates to death because air's running out. And then I don't know how she ends up somehow in a crypt too, like trapped, just completely insane. And then the lady, there's this lady that's wandering around, and the next morning sees like that she's laying in this crypt dead, closes the coffin and puts a rose on it. And essentially it's more of like a symbolic kind of movie, I guess. It's they go into a cemetery, and you're not supposed to leave a cemetery. I guess
Oh, I see.
The dead aren't supposed to leave. Yeah, so they're essentially what I think that he was trying to get as is like tread lightly in a cemetery. Death can happen no matter where you are. So it's a good movie. Definitely go give it a watch. He makes a lot of really good films, Jean Rollin, but that's one of my favorites. And it's not like it's meant to be taken seriously. It's not like a sleazy, just stupid movie. It's an actual good movie. So yeah, go give it a watch.
Yeah, for sure. So for my next movie, I love this movie. It's called Don't Hang Up, which I don't even remember how I found this movie. I think I was just like scrolling through. I think it's maybe on Amazon Prime if anybody wants to check it out. But it came out in 2016, and I would say it's probably like a horror thriller movie. But it's about these two guys, they're teenagers, and they're YouTubers, and they essentially prank call like everybody, and they record it and they put it on YouTube for their channel or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, one night they take it kind of, I don't want to say kind of too far, they definitely take it too far. They prank call this woman, and she's home alone with her son, home alone with her daughter. Yeah. And they're like, ma'am, we're the police, we're in your house, there's an intruder, like, you need to get out as soon as you can. And she's like, no, my daughter. And they're like, no, don't worry about your daughter, you need to get out. And they keep this prank going, convince this woman that someone's in her house and that the FBI is gonna, like, come raid it. Right. So she hides underneath her bed, and she had a gun, her bedside dresser, in case intruders ever came in. And her husband was away on a business trip, so it was just her and her daughter. Yeah. And so she's hiding in her room. She's thinking that the police are going to come in any moment. There's an intruder in her home. She hears her bedroom door open, and she shoots because she thinks it's an intruder, and she shoots her daughter. Yes, yeah. And then she realizes what she did, so she unalives herself. I don't know what I can say on YouTube. Unalives herself after seeing what she did. Right. And the movie starts out with that, and you're kind of confused. You're like, who are these people? Like, because it goes from such a high energy, these boys are on YouTube, like, messing around, and then it goes to that scene, and you're like, what? Yeah, yeah. So then it turns to these two boys, they're at a sleepover together, and it turns out the woman's husband kind of takes revenge on these two boys for what they did. Yeah. And he's smart, he's savvy, the way he does it is just super effective, he, like, turns them against each other, and he basically harasses them from not even being in the same home with them. Like, he keeps calling them and, like, almost prank calling them.
Yeah.
He has access to their phone, their TV. He has access to everything, access to their friends. He kidnaps one of their friends and just takes, like, complete and total revenge on these people. The ending is, like, gut-wrenching, for sure. But I love this movie. It's, like, just the tables turning in this movie is crazy.
Right,
I mean,
it's like giving them a taste of their own medicine, basically.
Yes, pretty much. I mean, they were being lighthearted and joking around, but to prank call somebody and say, you know, we're the police, we're in your house, is taking it a step further.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Like, prank...
That wasn't prank calls, what they were doing.
That's harassing.
Yeah, that was just super harassing.
And, yeah, they definitely get revenge. I don't want to give away the ending, but they definitely get revenge for it. And it's such a unique concept for a movie. I've never seen anything like it, really.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely.
And, yeah, I love that movie. Definitely go check it out, for sure.
And it was like more kind of like a thriller than, like, like, to put, like, anything. It'd be a horror movie, technically, but it would be, like, a thriller, too, because you're like, what the heck, you know? There's a lot going on in the movie, you know?
It's high suspense. Like, the way this man...
suspense is a good word.
The way this man literally puts these kids on edge from not even being in the same home with them. Like, all he's doing is calling them and, like, revealing all this information. Like, he says he kidnapped one of the boys' parents. Like, he had this planned out for probably a good year. Like,
he had a lot of time to, yeah.
All the detail he put into it. So, I mean, he controls their whole life, all from, I don't even know where he is. I think he's parked in a van somewhere or something.
I think it was, like he was just parked down the street from a van.
But it's so high tension, because at first they're just like, yeah, whatever, screw you, guy. Like, we're not answering your phone calls anymore. And he's like, no, you want to answer my phone calls. Like, I have your parents kidnapped.
Right, exactly.
It's creepy. It's a good movie. I really like this movie.
Yeah,
it's a good watch.
That was a good one, yeah. I don't remember what it is. Yeah, it was a good one.
It's a good watch, for sure. I love it.
Alright, so I got the Centennial. I don't know how to say that.
Sentinel?
Sentinel. It just sounds weird saying that, the Sentinel. But it's a 1977 supernatural horror film directed by Michael Winner. And it's a really good movie. Got a lot of famous people in it. It's got Christina Rains, Burgess Meredith, and then I guess they're very famous now, but that's just a movie, like, back in the 70s, they weren't that famous. Would be Christopher Walken, Jeff Goldblum, John Carradine, who's a horror icon. We'll talk about John Carradine in another episode with horror icons. And then Beverly D'Angelo, the mom from National Lampoons. She was in the movie as well. So there's a lot of famous people before they were famous, I guess, in this movie, besides, John Carradine and Burgess Meredith. But essentially the movie, it's a great movie. It starts out with this model. Her name's Allison Parker, and she's had, like, kind of a troubled life and everything like that. So it's like she's looking for a new place, and she ends up finding this old Brooklyn Heights brownstone that's been chopped up into, like, a multi-unit house, essentially. And there is a priest that lives on the top floor who's played by John Carradine, who's blind, and he just spends the day looking out the window.
That's creepy.
Yeah. And so then she, like, moves in. She starts meeting people that also live in the building, and one of them is Burgess Meredith, who's kind of like this eccentric, I don't know, kind of like Baron-esque type of dude. Okay. Then there's a lesbian couple in there, Gerda and Sandra. I think Gerda is, Sandra's Beverly D'Angelo. And it kind of gets weird in some parts, because what happens to the main character, Allison Parker, is, like, you start to realize what she's seeing and hearing is not real, or it might be real. You're really not sure yet. But basically, the movie, I'm just going to jump right into the ending. She comes to find out that the brownstone's built over a gateway to hell. Burgess Meredith's, like, this, Abaddon demon, basically, that's, like, trying to unleash hell on Earth. And the priest upstairs has been placed there to keep the door shut, essentially. Oh, wow. But it's a really good movie. I guess it probably was big because it came out. Universal directed, produced the movie or whatever like that. So it probably did see a good theater release. It actually made $1 million at the box office and on a $3 million budget. So it made some money there. But definitely, I think, like, for the time, it was probably an underrated horror movie, because you had, like, Carrie coming out, you had The Exorcist a few years before, you had The Omen.
That's a hard decade to compete with.
Yeah, the 70s, especially with American horror, because there was a lot of good ones. And then, obviously, there was a huge rush of Grindhouse and foreign movies coming in at the same time. But yeah, this is a really good one. I think Netflix still might have it on. If not, just like try to find it somewhere or rent it because it is a really good movie. And there's some classic actors. Like I love Burgess Meredith and John Carradine. They're my favorite, or some of my favorites, I should say, when it comes to horror. Yeah, and then it's cool to see like a young Jeff Goldblum and a young Christopher Walken too in the
How
movie.
old was Jeff Goldblum in it?
Oh, I don't know. He was probably
a teenager.
No, he was in his 20s for sure. Yeah, and then Christopher Walken, he was in his like 20s or 30s as well.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, I'd definitely go give it a watch. It's a really good movie.
Yeah.
I think we watched it together, but I can't remember if I just watched it by myself. It was pretty cool.
It kind of sounds familiar, but I feel like that's happened in other movies where they built a house over the gate of hell.
Yeah, you're probably thinking of like The Beyond or something like that, because that's kind of like the same. I think that's probably where Lucio Fulci got that idea, was from this movie.
I see. Yeah, because that sounds a little bit familiar.
Yeah, so that's that one. So,
all right.
Yeah, go give it a watch.
So for my next movie, I love this movie. I watched this a few years ago, and I watch it at least once a year since. Mm-hmm. It's called Would You Rather. It came out in 2012, and it has our Scream Queen, Brittany Snow. This is a unique horror movie. It's definitely focuses a lot on like suspense and gore, I would say. But essentially there's like this eccentric, I would say millionaire, I don't know, super rich guy, and he preys on like weak, poor, sad people and is like, hey, if you come to my house and for a dinner party and compete in my game, you know, I'll give you, they don't disclose, but we'll give you like X amount of dollars. We'll pay off. And he has an office at a cancer center or something, and he's like, I'll pay off your medical bills. Like, kind of a sick dude.
Right.
Like, preying on these poor people. So Brittany Snow, her brother has cancer, and it's just her and him, and she's kind of struggling with bills and trying to pay for his treatment. So she's like, you wanna know what? I don't have anything to lose. Like, he was highly recommended by, I think her doctor even recommended him, like this millionaire guy. So she's like, yeah, I guess I'll go to the dinner party. She goes there. Everything starts off normal. It kind of reminds me of Clue at first. Like, there's all these characters put together. You're kind of trying to figure out who's the bad guy, what's going on. It's a really nice house. And then finally, you know, they get to the dinner party scene, and he says, you know, we're going to play Would You Rather. And there's even this old lady. She's like, you're going to make us play each other? But obviously, it's a pretty sadistic game of Would You Rather, and he gives them a chance, you know, if you want to leave, you can leave now, but if you leave, you're not going to get any money.
Right.
And then they close the doors. They have people waiting at the doors with shotguns because, you know, you had your chance to leave and now you have to stay.
Sure.
So everybody picks up, I believe that they go around the table and everybody picks up a card, and it's like, would you rather do this or this? But it's like, you know, would you rather, like, I think one guy has to, like, slice his eyeball open. One guy has to, like, hold a tape of fireworks to his hand.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that.
He, like, retapes it completely to his hand and, like, has to hold on to it while it explodes. It's a pretty messed up movie, and this guy shows no mercy at all. I mean, there's literally an old woman in here with a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. She's in a wheelchair, and they make her, they electrocute her. It was like, would you rather electrocute yourself or the person next to you? And somebody chooses to electrocute her, and she makes it one round and dies, essentially. Aww. It's super interesting. It's a unique movie, and then the ending is just, God, it's a terrible ending. Spoiler alert: Brittany Snow ends up winning this game, and she gets home and she's like ready to tell her brother, you know, essentially, I can pay off your medical bills. You can get chemo now. She walks into her brother's room, and he had killed himself.
Jesus.
So she had done all of that and
man.
Went through everything. She was shocked. She like hurt other people. Did all of that, and her brother killed himself.
Jesus, man.
But it's a good movie. I don't want to downplay it and make it like sad or sadistic or anything. I mean, it is, but
yeah,
it's also a really good movie. I really like it. It's well done.
I thought the only reason I'm saying, oh man, is just because it's like
it's a gut-wrenching.
Well, she went all that way, and now she can't even like use the money which she was planning on using it for. Mm-hmm. Like that's terrible.
I know, and it shows like. I mean, it's probably commentary on money. You know, you get money, you think you're going to be happy once you have money, and then you get it, and it's like. What's it really matter, you know? Her brother being there mattered more.
Sure.
But she was doing it for a good cause. She wasn't doing it to buy a new car, you know, she was doing it to help him.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, I love this movie. It's got a lot of good gory scenes. It's Is
that the one with Ricky from Trailer Park Boys?
Yeah.
Okay.
He holds the fireworks.
That's the one that's right. I thought that was the one. Okay. So
and the one guy in it is from, My Name is Earl. The one guy. He's
Randy?
Yeah.
Randy?
But yeah, it's just the contrast in this movie is crazy because like the kill scenes are so gory, and then you have this just eccentric billionaire. He's like, "Go Bravo, good show." On to the next.
I know, he was kind of like wicked eccentric, that's right.
And he had a butler named Chives, and like he would mop up the bodies afterwards. He's like, Chives, like,
yeah, that's right. He was like super like, okay, time to clean up. Yeah. Time to the next round.
It's crazy. But highly recommend. Very good movie. I love Brittany Snow. This is like young Brittany Snow at her finest.
What year did that come out?
2012.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
12 years now. All right, so for my next one, I picked, so this one's kind of like a B movie, but it is I like the idea of the movie. It definitely could have been done a little bit better, but it's 1989's The Church, and it is a supernatural Italian horror film, written by Dario Argento, and Michele Soavi directed the movie, and Dario Argento produced the movie. Essentially what it is this, back in like the medieval times, there was a satanic cult that was like slaughtered by these, it was basically like a rip-off of the Knights Templar. It was called, I forget, Teutonic Knights. They killed all these Satan worshippers, dug a mass grave, buried them, and then built this cathedral over the top to kind of contain the evil that was within. It's kind of cheesy, the movie. Like the acting's not really the greatest, know, but it's the idea is cool. So basically, modern day now, this new librarian arrives at the cathedral to go through like all the the works and everything there. There's a young girl there restoring all the murals and stuff like that. They're kind of like trying to revamp or preserve the cathedral, I guess. Then they find, the church is about the church being built on, like, the satanic cult remains and stuff like that. The evil gets released. It kind of, people in the church start turning into, like, these demons and stuff like that and seeing stuff that are getting attacked by stuff that's not there. So it's good. Definitely could have been done a little bit better, in my opinion. I still like to watch it. It's still a good movie.
Right.
It actually... it was supposed to be kind of like the third installment of the Demon movies. If you guys are familiar with Lamberto Bava and Dario Argento's movies, Demons and Demons 2, you can kind of see a lot of similarities there. So this is supposed to be the third one, I guess, but Michael Sauvé said, no, I don't want it to be like any of that, because those movies are just like ultra-violent, it's supposed to be like, no plot really, it's just like these people get possessed and start killing people, So he wanted to kind of like distance himself from that, but you can kind of see where it could ultimately ended up being like the third installment of that whole trilogy. So it's definitely a good watch. If you're a fan of foreign film, definitely go give it a watch. Actually, just watched it today, just because I was like, man, I forgot about how did this all go in the movies. Yeah. So yeah, it's a good movie. I definitely recommend it. Go watch it. There's some good kill scenes. There's a lot of gore in it too. Like this one guy jackhammers himself to death because he's just going crazy, possessed. So yeah, go check it out.
Yeah. So for my next pick, I did Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, which I know this is a Halloween movie, so people might not think of it as an underrated movie, but Halloween 3 is definitely the most disliked movie out of the whole franchise. And the reason being, if you haven't seen it, is because Michael Myers is not in it at all.
Oh, he's in it, but he's not in
it. He's not in it. He's shown on TV. He's like they're watching Halloween at a bar in this movie, but he's not a villain. The story is not about Laurie Strode. There's no Michael in this movie. And I still like this movie. Like, this movie got such bad reviews because everybody was expecting to see Michael Myers.
Sure. Yeah, third installment,
Third installment, yes. They came out with the first two, and then... So John Carpenter, the director of Halloween, he wanted this initially to be, an anthology franchise. Which is a bunch
Halloween movies.
Right, just movies about the season, like the holiday, everything. Like, movies that really make you think of Halloween.
Right.
And he said that he would only do Halloween 3 if it wasn't about Michael Myers, which I think is crazy. I understand where he was going with that, but he definitely cared about his art, because it could have been a cash grab. It could have been like, let's make this about Michael and make, $1 billion.
Oh, no, definitely.
But instead, I really want to do something with this franchise, and it just didn't work out.
Right.
Critics hated it. People don't like it.
I don't get it, because it is a really good movie.
I think it is a really good movie. I mean, I get going to theaters and being mad that Michael's not in it. I get that.
Sure.
But, like, then analyzing the movie after as its own movie, it's a good movie.
Right.
Like, if you take away the Halloween name, I guess, or the title, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's about this company that comes out,
Silver Shamrock.
Yeah. It's this Silver Shamrock mask company, and they're essentially trying to do this, like, mass cult ritual where kids put this mask on and they tune into this television program, and at 9 p.m. sharp, the mask basically, like, becomes them. It's like Carly Beth and Goosebumps.
Is that what it was, or did it blow up? I thought it, like, blew their head up. I think you're right, too. No, I think you are right.
I thought it, like, became them, and then, like, I remember bugs were, like, crawling
out.
Oh,
yeah, that's right, yeah.
Because they show, like, a skit of it. Like, he has a mock family. Well, it's a real family, but it's a mock family sitting in front of the TV, and it happens to all of them, and all these bugs start crawling out of their eyes and their mouth.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's some loose ends in this movie. You don't really understand why they're doing this.
Right.
It's just creepy. Like, I get where they were going with the anthology series, for sure. This is a spooky Halloween tale.
Oh, yeah.
Like, kids wearing masks is very spooky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the masks that, like, kill them.
Yeah, and it's like this like, I don't know, it's very ambiguous. Like, the government's in on it. All these towns have, like, cameras. They're monitoring everybody to make sure that they all have these masks on.
Yeah.
The guy arranging it all, I have a quote here, and he said, "I do love a good joke, and this is the best ever, a joke on children." But I couldn't find any other reason why he wanted to do this. And
right.
It was just mass suicide. Like, I don't know what the reason was, but...
Yeah, it's like kind of like the government is involved. It's kind of like Illuminati-ish,
Yeah, I would say that's probably the best way to explain it, is it's Illuminati-ish. And I actually found a review saying Halloween 3 manages the not easy feat of being anti-children, anti-capitalism, anti-television, and anti-Irish at all the same time.
Yeah.
Which I guess is fair, but I still think this is a good movie, and I think it deserves more hype than it does.
I like it. It's a good movie.
I think people view this as a standalone movie in the franchise. Like, I think if somebody has a Halloween marathon, they don't typically include the third one.
No, I think they skip over it. Yeah.
It's not.
Which, then again, it's like he should have just maybe titled it Season of the Witch, I guess. Not Halloween 3, but...
Yeah, I mean...
I get maybe that was just a spite, the
who knows?
producers and everything
who knows what was going
that.
on, though. The producers are probably like, hey, we'll make more money if we put Halloween, and people will come see it
for
Halloween.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't do that well theater-wise. I think once people found out what was actually going on,
kind of just bombed after that.
It kind of just bombed.
Probably had like a good opening night, and then it was like everyone's like, no, don't go see it.
Yeah, I think word got around after that. But yeah, this movie came out in 1982. It's a third installment, and it's definitely a whole standalone plot. But still, is it like if I were to do an anthology series after Halloween, that's the way I would do it. I would show the little like Easter egg of Michael Myers on the TV screen just to show that I'm aware of Halloween and all that. But I'm gonna do something different.
Right, but also involves Halloween.
I think if you watch it separate from the idea of Michael, it's a good movie.
No, definitely.
Don't get me wrong, I love Michael, but I still think this is good.
Yeah, I definitely like Halloween 3. Definitely very underrated.
And the song is so catchy. The mask song.
8 more days till Halloween. Halloween.
It's so catchy. It's a bop, really.
It is. It's fun.
Nick and I will sing that one day we sang it like all day. Like,
after we watched it, we're just like 8 more days till Halloween. It is catchy. That's kind of like that whole cult thing with the movie too. It's like getting people to like buy into it and stuff like that with a catchy song, these masks and stuff like that.
And of course the kids are like, I want that mask. Everybody
everyone has the Silver Shamrock mask. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Love it.
All right, so for my next one, I did The New York Ripper, which came out in 1982. It was directed by Lucio Fulci, and he kind of goes back in this movie to like the giallo style horror, not like the zombie movies that he was making in like the late 70s and the beginning of the 80s. But essentially, this is a really good movie. I'm not going to really tell you too much about it, other than that it's basically these women around New York City start going, they start getting murdered and stuff like that, and there's like hands being found, limbs being found, bodies being found, and so the police are okay, we got a serial killer on our hands now, because they kind of start putting there's like a lot of cool things in this movie that they do with like the police work. They show like, okay, yeah, like this, they talk a lot about like the whole psychology of like a serial killer kind of a lot in this movie. With like, okay, this person was killed like that. It matches the same kind of MO. This person was killed, so we got a connection there, and they kind of focus on that, which is cool. But the killer, they discover is like he talks like Donald Duck, which is kind of funny. But if you like giallo movies, you're gonna find like there's like some quirky things the killers do in the movies that you're kind of like that's really bizarre. So he talks like Donald Duck, and he's like calls the police. He's mocking them and stuff like that, talking like Donald Duck on the phone to them and everything like that. It's kind of like a mockery thing. Good. There's some good kill scenes in it. It's Lucio Fulci, so it's gory. There's a nice eyeball cutting with a razor blade scene.
Love that.
It was. I think this was pretty well received in the U.S. It made 1.4 million euros. Doesn't say what that how much the budget was though. But it's a longer movie. It's almost a 2-hour long film. And it was actually banned in the UK up until 2002, so 30
really?
years.
Why?
No, 30 years? No, I'm sorry,
Just
20 years, I'm sorry. Yeah, they had that whole ban on film, like, video nasty thing going on in, like, the 80s and stuff like that. So any movie that showed, like, nudity or violence and stuff like that, they were like, no, we can't have it here in the UK.
Like, yeah, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Can't show that at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
But it's a good movie. Definitely a good, like, if, you like the crime serial killer kind of movie. It kind of reminds me of Maniac a little bit, I guess, just because it's in New York City. But yeah, definitely go give it a watch. Gory. So if you like gore, you definitely can expect that. Yeah, it's a good one too. It's like she's tied to the bed naked, and the killer is like on top of her with like a razor blade. And of course, he focuses right in on the eyeball and just starts like slicing at it.
It shows it all too.
Oh yeah, it shows. You're like, ooh, closing your eyes.
Eyeball and fingernail. I have a fingernail scene I'll touch on later. I don't like fingernail stuff.
Yeah, no. Anything with like teeth and nails. Eyeball don't bother me, but
yeah, eyeball doesn't bother me as much. But I don't like nails. That bothers me.
Pulling nails out. Yeah,
I don't like that.
No, teeth. I don't like the teeth.
It's like nails on a chalkboard. I don't like anything like that.
Sure.
Yeah, teeth getting pulled out. I don't like either.
Right.
I'm not a fan of that.
So yeah, go give that one a watch.
So my next movie I picked is Dark Skies, which I think for a long time I didn't watch alien movies because I always thought they were so cheesy. I thought they were repetitive and always the same. But then I saw Dark Skies, and this is my favorite alien movie for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think it doesn't get the hype that it deserves. This movie came out in 2013, and it's like a sci-fi horror movie, I would say.
Yeah, definitely sci-fi horror.
Yeah. But it's definitely scary. Like, I think if somebody watched this and they weren't maybe, like, as into horror like we are, they'd be genuinely scared of this movie.
It's freaky. Yeah, definitely
it's super creepy. And I remember watching it because the opening quote says something like...
was it, like, 1 million people go missing or
something?
No,
like it says, either we are alone in this universe or we are not, and both possibilities equally as terrifying.
Yes.
And as soon as I saw that, I've thought about that at least once a week, I'd say, since I've seen it. Because I'm like, yeah, either we're completely alone here, and that's terrifying. We have no one to help us. We have nothing. Or there's something out there that we are unsure of.
Yeah, that we have no idea about.
Right. And I remember seeing that, and I was like, what an opening to a movie.
Yeah.
And it focuses on the Barrett family, and essentially it's just... I don't want to say realistic because I don't know. I've never been invaded. But I think if an alien invasion were to happen on a family specifically, this is definitely the most realistic way it would happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, it starts off small. Like, there's, like, food going missing in the home. Like, their home alarm goes off.
Yeah.
There's plates being stacked up. They're thinking maybe squirrels or something. But then it kind of escalates and, family pictures go missing. A whole herd of birds hit their house.
Right.
And they're birds that don't even fly in that, like, migration, essentially, where they would be over their house.
Yeah, they would be, like, they're not from that area.
Right, and they all migrated to their house. And they live in, like, suburbia. Like, they're not abandoned. Yeah. They're around a lot of other houses.
Yes.
And, they end up finding out, they lose track of time, like, they go through these phases, like, the mom, there's this one scene where she, like, completely blacks out and bashes her head on a window.
Yeah.
And she's supposed to be a real estate agent, and her people are like, are you okay?
Yeah, she's, like, in the middle of a showing and starts just, like, smashing her head on the glass, and...
Yeah, the whole family kind of gets infiltrated, and essentially they end up seeking out help, which, the person they seek out help from is one of my favorite horror movie characters.
Oh, I love him.
His name is Edwin Pollard, and he's like what you would picture. I don't even know, like maybe.
He'd be I don't know, really, an abductee, I guess.
I was gonna say he would be like, what's his name from X-Files today?
Kind of like Mulder, yeah.
Yeah, like
he'd
how
be like
Mulder
a conspiracy
would be.
Theorist,
yeah. Like if Mulder was a real person, he aged, and this was what he would be. The house is covered in newspaper clippings.
Yes.
All these conspiracies. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, that's a good. I like that. That's good. Yeah.
I was thinking of Scully. I couldn't think of Mulder's name for a second.
Mm.
But he has a quote in this movie too, and he says, "People think of aliens as these beings invading our planet and some great catalyst, destroying monuments, stealing our natural resources, but it's not like that at all. The invasion already happened."
Right.
And it's just so unsettling, this movie.
Yeah, they wouldn't do it like that. They're smarter than us. They wouldn't do it like that. I like the one quote too. He says, the dad's like, well, why us? Why us? And he's like, there's no reason. It's no different than than you watching mice run around in a maze for cheese. That's literally, or watching an ant farm. That's literally, there's no reason.
And the aliens in this movie are the Greys, which if you're not familiar with aliens or their species, they're 6 foot tall. Maybe even taller, probably
there's
7, 8
different,
feet tall.
different varieties of them.
But they're super tall, super skinny, super creepy, and I think it's effective in this movie. The CGI in this movie of the aliens is very effective. I think it's well done.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the ending of this movie because it's such a climax, and it's 4th of July, and they have all their windows boarded, and they're expecting an alien invasion. Everybody else is out at the beach. And just the contrast between, on the TV, there's the American flag, national anthem's playing, and there's these beams of light coming in. It's just such a good scene. It's so well done. And there's a huge plot twist at the end. You think they're going to take one family member, they don't. And it's just crazy. But this is definitely my favorite alien movie. This got me back into alien movies for sure, because for a while I was like, that's so cheesy. The Little Green Men. It's done so many times.
Sure.
But this is no E.T. These things are creepy and they're effective. I love this movie.
Yeah, it is really good. I really liked it too because the whole not the whole time obviously, but beginning you're this is a haunted house,
Yeah,
movie.
You think
it's a ghost or something.
It's not advertised as aliens at all.
No, it's just I think the picture is just some kid looking up into the sky, which is dark skies. It's okay, yeah, so that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But yeah, when you're watching it, maybe for the first 25 minutes, you're oh, they're getting the house is haunted. There's a possession or something going to happen.
And the kids are kind of acting weird, so you're maybe it's taking over the kids, they're being possessed by some demon or something, and then you kind of figure out it's aliens, and you're wow, that was so well done.
Yes.
For it to be aliens.
Yeah, it's the director, and the ending sucks in the movie, and I'm not going to spoil it, but you think there's going to be a part 2, and there definitely needs to be a part 2.
I think so. I wonder if they didn't get approved or something for a part 2.
I know, because they leave you hanging big time there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's totally they're going to make another one.
Yeah.
They have to with that kind of ending.
But I know. I wonder if maybe they didn't get approved.
Came out, 12 years ago?
2013. I just wonder if it didn't do that well, because I never hear people talk about this, and even when it came out, I don't think a lot of people are going to see it, really.
Yeah, I remember it being in theaters and wanting to go see it, but
I just wonder if they didn't get approved for a second one. I'm not sure. But then some of the sequels I see coming out, I'm oh, that got approved?
Yeah, exactly. That's a very well done movie. I really like it.
Very well done.
It's a very good...
I would say it's a high-class alien movie. If you think of alien movies as cheesy and overdone and whatever, this is totally different.
Well, it's not the Ridley Scott alien films, where they're these wicked, monstrosity, super fast with acid
most
blood.
Realistic, I think.
Yeah, this is, I think, what people would think. When you talk to somebody that says they've been abducted,
this is what they've seen.
Yeah, these are the Greys, and it's cool in that movie because it's got J.K. Simmons, the farmers guy. We are farmers. He's the conspiracy theorist.
I love him,
and he's got all the different reports from abductees of what type of alien abducted them, what they look like,
And he tells them you're not the first family to go through this. This has happened a few times, and then there's all these things on the wall about children going missing mysteriously. The parents claim alien abduction. Who the hell's going to believe them?
Yeah, that's the sad part too in this movie because it's no one's going to believe you.
The one kid has welts on him, and he goes to the pool, and they all think the parents they call CPS.
Yeah, exactly. The kid gets taken from him for a couple hours,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's definitely a really good one.
And I feel like watching it now. We should watch it later.
Yeah, we should. I'm down to watch it. That is a good movie.
All right, so for my next one, I have got 1987's Prince of Darkness. So it was directed and written, and John Carpenter also did the music on this movie. So this movie's actually like, I guess, what John Carpenter calls his Apocalypse trilogy, which began with The Thing, which we talked about before, in 1982. And now this is his second installment, which is Prince of Darkness. And then his third installment, which would be Mouth of Madness in 1994. So I guess he had like kind of a plan for these three films to kind of be like, I don't know, maybe released in like a box set or something together. But essentially, this movie, it's one of my favorite movies. Very well done. It's cool because I'm a big, into physics and, I love learning about, quantum mechanics and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool that they incorporate this into a horror film. But basically, it's this monk who's played by Donald Pleasence. So there's another character, from John Carpenter. That he's a monk in this.
I wonder if they got along so well that he casted him around, or he just enjoyed his acting so much. Or...
Well, I think it was a little bit of both. I'm sure he probably liked him as a guy, and then he is a great actor. I love Donald Pleasence. So he ends up calling these physicist students from a university down to this monastery in Los Angeles, and because they found this strange vial in the basement of this red liquid, and I'm not going to go into the specifics because you kind of got to watch the movie to understand. I'm going to do a bad job of trying to explain why you need physicists for this, but basically they end up finding that this vial of red liquid is sentient, and it's basically a liquidated version of one of the sons of Satan, and they come to find out that Jesus was actually an alien warning the people of Earth that, this thing that has landed, this is Satan's blood, or Satan's son, essentially. And then, so some of the blood gets, escapes from the vial, and they, people start, trying, or it gets into some of the people, and they start trying to kill each other off and stuff like that, and, what's really cool about this movie, too, is Alice Cooper makes a good cameo in it. He plays a homeless man. He is the Prince of Darkness, Alice Cooper. He plays a homeless man that's kind of congregating around the church because he knows there's, the Satan's in there, essentially. There's some sort of, physical connection with, this vial and certain people. And it's cool to watch that because they explain it scientifically. Not going to go into the ending just because I really think everybody should watch this movie. It's a good ending. It's kind of confusing a little bit in some parts.
A lot of these endings I kind of want people to see for themselves. Because we can sit here and explain them, but the shock factor that you have is just...
Exactly. It's
irreplaceable sometimes.
Right, exactly. So it's definitely one you got to go and watch. It's not really boring, but it's a slow burn, I guess, because you're trying to understand what's going on. It's not, it wasn't like The Thing, where it's just all of a sudden it goes, balls to the wall, and there's stuff, craziness happening. Yeah. But it definitely does a good job.
So I just looked up because I wanted to see if there was anything about Donald Pleasence and John Carpenter, if they were good friends or whatever it was. And somebody said that John Carpenter was essentially forced into making Halloween 2, because remember we were saying earlier he wanted to make it an anthology series. I guess somewhere in his contract it was written that he would do Halloween 2. And they threatened to sue him, and instead of making Halloween 2, he made The Fog instead.
Oh, that's another good one. I forgot about The Fog, the pirate movie.
Yeah, they went on to sue him since he went around their arrangement, and then I guess he settled to make Halloween 2. But he must really not have wanted to do another Michael Myers.
Jamie Lee Curtis in The Fog, too? I think she was.
Was she?
If I'm thinking of that, I'm pretty sure she was. Yeah, she was the radio girl, that's right.
Yeah. They probably get along well, too. I did see something saying Donald Pleasence said that John Carpenter is the best director he's ever worked with.
Oh, really? No
so maybe that was just the respect there.
No, for sure.
That's crazy, though.
That is crazy. But yeah, definitely go give this one a watch if you want to check out Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy. And it is definitely one that flew under the radar, too. I'm not sure, really. My computer's not really loading right now for some reason.
That's what sucks about coming out with a movie so iconic as Halloween, because I feel your other works don't get as respected.
It actually did pretty good on the box office. It made $14 million out of a $3 million budget, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
They definitely made a lot of profit in that movie.
I will say it's what I love, or I definitely respect about Wes Craven, is he did Nightmare on Elm Street, which probably was his biggest movie at the time, and then you would think, everything he made after that wouldn't be as highly respected, but then he went on to do Scream.
Oh, yeah,
one of the biggest horror franchises ever, which is a really hard thing to do, because once your name is stuck to something, people don't like to see new work from you if it's different,
Right, exactly.
They don't like to see anything else. Like Harry Potter, I remember he had a hard time getting roles.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
Well, Daniel Radcliffe,
and then, Elijah Wood, he's going to be Frodo to me forever.
Right. So it's hard for them to branch out, for sure.
But, when you do a movie like Lord of the Rings, you really need to go and get another gig.
So the next movie I picked is The Bay, which we actually just rewatched this the other night.
Yeah, we watched it last night, actually.
I was like, I need to revisit this movie. I remember it being really good. We watched it a few years ago. But it was even better the second time I watched it. I think it's on Tubi we watched it on.
No, I think we had to rent it.
Oh, did we? Is it on Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
It's worth the $2.99 or whatever you have to pay, I promise. So essentially this movie is kind of like a one of those like almost post-apocalyptic movies. It's about like a water source in a small town. I think they're in Maine.
No, they're in Maryland.
Maryland.
Yeah.
It's about this water source being polluted with, they pollute it with like chicken crop, and then eventually some like parasite gets into the water and it turns into the drinking water, but it lays larvae in the drinking water, so it filters through the filtration system that they have.
Yeah.
So the parasite, sinks through, and I think it's like Memorial Day weekend or something, but there's people everywhere on the boardwalk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then people start breaking out in lesions. Like, the special effects in this movie, for probably how low budget it was, were great.
Yeah, definitely.
People are on the boardwalk screaming, and they have like these lesions and burns everywhere. Their skin is like peeling off.
Right.
And they're help me. And then, it cuts to, it's found footage, so it kind of cuts all over the place, and then at the end it all kind of comes together for what's going on.
Yep.
Then it cuts to, an ER doctor, and he's like, I have 30 cases of this. He's trying to call the CDC, like, what's going on? And I guess there was these 2 divers a few months prior that had gone down and found that some of these parasites were inside the fish, and a lot of the fish were ending up dead.
Yep.
And then the 2 divers ended up dead as well.
Right.
But it's such a good movie. Like, these parasite things survive outside of water. They're like that big. They're like a cockroach.
Well, yeah, they kind of look like, because you remember when he was on talking to the CDC, the CDC guy was like talking to another, like, who's like not an anthropologist, but they study like animal life and stuff like that. Biologists, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were like encephalopods, like the
Yes.
giant like things that like are found in like rock fossils that they look like that, and they're like, I guess, all over the ocean, that they get mutated by this bacteria or this parasite that's in the water.
It was like the perfect storm, because they had like farm runoff into the water as well, so it was already polluted, and then they had these encephalopods that kind of like adapted to the environment.
Yeah, and there was like a nuclear spill too that they come to find out there was like nuclear waste dumped into the water too, and
it's just all these. It's so realistic. Like, the mayor of the town, covers it up because Memorial Day, they make a lot of money off of tourism.
Yeah, it's like a touristy town. Yeah,
and it's just the way it's shot is so realistic, because if this were really to happen, that's exactly what would happen. Like, there'd be some ER doctor that calls the CDC and it's like, what's going on? And even the CDC is like, I don't no idea what's going on.
Right.
And then they try to basically isolate this town and cut everybody off, because it just keeps like jumping from person to person. It literally eats its way outside of the person.
Yeah.
And then it jumps to the next.
Yeah, it's insane. It's like it's an organism that's just like burrowing its way out from inside. It's insane. It is a good movie.
It's good. I think the special effects are really good, and the U.S. government, it's like filmed in like a secretive way at the beginning. It's like, oh, the FBI tried to take this footage away.
Mm-hmm.
Then it says at the end that the U.S. government killed it by pouring bleach into the bay afterwards.
Chlorine. It was like a huge amount of chlorine in the water supply.
But I actually looked up, and I guess the director of this movie, someone confronted him and said, we want you to make a documentary about the Chesapeake Bay. And he was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And then he looked into how much pollution was in the bay, and he made this movie instead.
Oh, really? No kidding. So he did, like, kind of basically a mockumentary, but not really.
He was like, okay, I'll make a movie about it. And I guess it's like 40% lifeless, which they said this in the movie, but it's true. All the good bacteria in the water, everything is killed by all the chemicals that humans have poured into there. And this is all accurate. Like, this could happen tomorrow.
No, I know, it is terrifying, because like I could definitely see something like that happening. Like, something gets mutated in the water that there's hundreds of millions of that are small, but they can get big. And
the shit that we pour into the water is insane.
Oh, it's
what it can
terrible.
Do is crazy, and then nobody knows what to do with it. The hospitals are filled, and everybody's just dead in the waiting room.
Yeah, I know. It's like, an outbreak like that. It's like, what the hell do you do for like an animal that grows inside you at first? What do you do?
The doctor's like, I'm chopping off extremities, I'm chopping off legs, arms, because wherever the lesions are, they cut it off, but then it just spreads throughout the entire body. So they're like, I have no idea what to do. It's realistic. I think it's very effective, and it's not a very popular movie, and I don't know why.
No, I definitely think should be a lot more popular.
Anything like poisoning the water supply, which we'll kind of touch on a little bit later. I have another movie like that. Mm-hmm. But anything poisoning the water supply is so scary, because that's cutting off a life source for people,
Oh, yeah. No, you need water to live, dude.
Yeah. All right.
You need to live.
You can talk about your next one if you want.
All right. So for my next one, I picked 2010's Legion. So this one... It's kind of actually titled a supernatural action horror film, and I guess it really is, because
I would say it's more supernatural.
Well, action though.
You think?
Yeah, but it's titled Supernatural Action, so it's it's kind of funny because you've never heard supernatural action horror before, so that's kind of a funny title they give it. But it is written by or directed by Scott Stewart and co-written by Stewart and Peter Schenck, and it stars Paul Bettany, Tyrese Gibbons, and Dennis Quaid. Those are just the main people. There's other people in the movie,
Dennis
obviously.
Quaid was in it.
Yeah. And it's kind of a cool twist on basically like the second coming. So this girl that works, they're out in this desert. All these people, the main characters, they're out in the desert at this diner. And this girl that works there, she's pregnant. And she doesn't know it, but Jesus, or the second coming, is the baby inside of her, essentially. But it's weird because it's a different twist. So God has given up on the faith of giving up faith in humanity, and
he's trying to like get rid of all humans. Right?
Yeah, he tells Michael, the angel, we're going to start, mass, there's going to be another big catastrophe, like a deluge or something like that. And Michael's like, no, I don't think so. So he becomes a fallen angel, and he's going down to try to protect the lady with the baby, and gets to the diner and stuff like that, and I'm not going to spoil it because you kind of got to watch it, and it's kind of hard to describe too, but basically it's God's the wrath in this movie. It's God's wrath. It's very Old Testament, like, I'm pissed at humanity, so I'm going to kill everybody now.
Yeah.
And Michael is kind of like the good guy in this movie, and so there's a good scene, there's a bunch of good scenes, and I can see why they call it an action, because Michael, the angel, he's like carrying an arsenal of like automatic weapons with him. And they start, like, all these people that become possessed start showing up trying to get to the baby at this diner. And, they're killing all these... They look like normal people, but they're possessed
by... zombies almost.
Yeah, and they're possessed by angels, which is weird because you don't think that. So it's basically like a 180. Yeah. God's the bad guy in this movie. So it's pretty interesting. It's a good movie, and there's a scene in it that's very iconic, and I'm sure you guys have seen it like all over the internet before, but it's the old woman that just like...
She comes in, eats raw piece of steak, it's all bloody.
And then she's climbing on the ceiling.
And then she says to the server, she's like, what about the baby? And she's like, what about the baby? Well, he's going to burn.
All the little babies are going to burn, and then she's just like bites this guy's neck, climbs on the ceiling. It's kind of corny, but it's cool. It's definitely like iconic. And you're like, what the hell? And then like she gets shot and killed, and that's when Michael shows up. Is basically after they kill that granny.
They kill grandma.
But it's a cool idea for a movie. It's a cool concept. There's it's an action movie. It's like you're kind of like, oh, this is cool. Like, it's not just like a horror, like a murderer running around. Like,
and
it's
the
like
biblical stuff isn't like
movie.
Overwhelming. It's like you're watching it thinking it could be like a zombie apocalypse or something, and then the biblical stuff's kind of like sprinkled in there.
Yeah, it's not like. Well, I mean, it is kind of like the main topic. I mean, it's obviously.
It's not like overwhelming.
Well, for like maybe for the first like half hour, it's not. But that's like once you find out like he's Archangel Michael, his brother Gabriel is like following God's orders. They get into the battle and everything like that. True. It's very biblical and like halfway through the movie.
That's true.
But it's cool. It did pretty good at the box office too. Made $67 million with a $26 million budget. CGI is really good in the movie too.
Yeah, they have like wings in the CGI. Or I think those are CGI.
Yeah, the angel, when the wings come out of the angels, it's so cool. It's very, very like, oh, this is badass, you know? It's very cool.
Okay, so for my next movie, I picked definitely one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's called The Descent.
Oh, I love that
this movie is just criminally underrated. Criminally underrated. More people should know about it. More people should watch it for sure. But essentially, it's about a group of hikers. They have some sort of tragedy among one of their friends. She loses her husband and her daughter, I believe, in a car accident. So all the friends try to get together and, they kind of rekindle their friendship with her after she went through this traumatic event. Oh, yeah. And they like to go cave diving together. So this one friend was like, hey, I found this cave. Let's go in it. They go in. Part of the cave kind of, what's it called? Like falls down or collapses. Yeah. Part of the cave collapses while they're in there, and the one friend who found the cave kind of opens up to everybody and is like, this is an unknown cave, no one's ever been here before. I thought it would be fun, I thought it would bring our friendship closer. Right. If this is my friend, I'd be like, okay, we're done. We're done.
You ruined our friendship.
So any chance of anybody finding them or rescuing them is gone, because nobody knows about this cave, and nobody knows the path or anything. And this movie is so effective because, first of all, they're in a cave, and a lot of people don't like claustrophobia, and they play on that a lot. Like, there's a lot of scenes where they're crawling through really tight spaces, and you're just so uncomfortable. You're all sweaty. You're like, oh, I don't like these tight spaces. And then they get further and further into the cave, and there's these things that are called the crawlers, which are these, like, humanoid creatures that have adapted to living in this cave for decades. Like,
generations.
Yes. They have, babies, there's women, men, crawlers, so they've had the whole species down there, essentially.
Yes, yeah.
And they've adapted to living in the darkness in a cave. I mean, they're crawling up walls, they're
Yeah, they, like, have their eyes are, like skinned over because they don't need them down there.
Yeah. They can just hear.
Off sound.
Yep, they have, like, high tech hearing, essentially. And, they're walking through, and then they see one of those, and it just attacks the first girl, like, right off the bat. And then it kind of goes through and picks them off one by one. But I love this movie. It's so effective between, like, you're lost in a cave, so it's, like, your survival instincts, the claustrophobia, and then you have these, like, creatures that you don't know what the hell they are. They're coming at you from everywhere.
Exactly.
You don't know how they hunt. You don't know anything about them. And then further on, they find out, they can't see us. They can just hear.
Yeah.
But they don't know that at first. And it's just super high tension. I love this movie.
Oh, yeah. It's super good. And there's good kill scenes in it, too. And it's very bloody and gory. And
very gory.
Like the bone breaking and stuff is very very wretched. And,
it's very realistic, I would say. And I saw, I think in here the director said that when he was making the crawlers for this movie, he wanted to make them, like, similar to, like, if cavemen had never left the cave. Like, if we were cavemen and we never left, what we would be like, what we would look like.
Sure, yeah.
And that's kind of what he played off for the crawlers.
Oh, I like that idea.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, this is actually, based in North Carolina. They're all, like, British people, but then they went to North Carolina and the Appalachian Mountains for, an adventure that turns into just chaos. And they're basically just prey for these creature things that have no mercy, no thoughts, nothing. They just, they want to eat.
Yeah, only one person survives, right?
Yeah, the one girl survives, and there's a second one, which...
Oh, yeah.
The premise is kind of dumb, because she goes back in the cave.
It's kind of like Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
Why would you go back?
But she has amnesia, so it's like a little... I'll give her a little grace for that.
Right.
But yeah, definitely, I mean, it's a fair movie, and I like movies that could actually happen. Like, I think this...
Oh, yeah, that's definitely... Yeah, caves are very... sparsely explored, I mean, there's not like a science for cave exploration,
Mm-hmm. And I saw another fun fact about this is these crawlers were actually hidden from the cast until they actually started filming. So they didn't see what they were going to look like until the first scene. And that's the scene that's in the movie.
So they got a good reaction, like a real...
Which I like. I know 2017's It with Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. They did that too with the kids. They didn't see him until they were actually filming.
Oh, really?
They didn't see what he was going to look like as Pennywise.
That's so
and
mean.
I love that. I think that's so cool.
That's so mean. But yeah, that's a good one. I definitely love that movie. All right, for my next one here, I got it's an incident in a Ghostland. So this movie came out in 2018. It's a great movie. I think the director, he did the remake, the American remake of Martyrs in 2016.
He did.
Or 2015, I think that came out. And so it's going to be a good film because Martyrs is just a great film. And even the American one I don't like as much, but it's still
the American one.
It's still well done, I think. Yeah. I mean, it's not as good as the original. Nothing's as good as the original. But so this movie is it's very weird because it's kind of like in sections almost. It's filmed. And you'll see what I mean when I talk about it. But basically, it's like this woman named Colleen is traveling to a deceased aunt's house and with her two daughters, Beth and Vera. And they get to this house, and it's kind of weird. It's like this old Victorian mansion, but it's like in the middle of like nowhere. And it's kind of just it's kind of like farmhouse style too. But the aunt was very eccentric. She had like these weird like doll collection and like very like odd things like all throughout her house. So it's kind of sets like a creepy tone for the house.
Well, they pass an ice cream truck on the way with like I guess a woman and like her son, and the one daughter flips her off. The woman truck, and then you find out later the ice cream truck kind of followed them to the house.
Yeah, so you get so basically after that all happens, like on their way there, that ice cream truck, they're actually it's a mother and a daughter and they're psychopaths. The mom's like, I don't know if she's drag or what, or
trans
or something. There's something going on with her, and the son's like, there's something mentally wrong with the son.
Yeah, he would be like considered on the spectrum.
I'd say a little bit more than that. There's something a lot wrong with him.
He's like the guy who reminds me of the guy from the Goonies.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're right. He kind of looks like him too.
Yeah.
So yeah, they basically follow them to this house. They kind of stalk them, and then they break in, and then it just goes completely insane. Super violent. I'm not going to talk about some of the stuff that happens in the movie because there's a little like weird things that happen in the movie. But basically, the guy takes and they hold these two girls captive after killing their mother in the house, and they've only been there, I don't even think, a night yet, and this happens.
No.
But then it cuts to like, so you're watching it and it cuts to something that happens, like the mother lives, they get out, they kill the two people, they live, and they, go on, they grow up, the daughters, they grow up and everything like that. Then the mother's still living at the house, the daughter comes back to visit her after she's this huge successful author and everything like that. And, but the one daughter who had that all happen, with the stuff that I can't speak of, she's still like mentally messed up from it, and like she's like living in the basement still and everything. And you're kind of like, why is she still living in the basement acting like this? This is super weird. And like the mom's not really like paying much attention to her and stuff like that. So you're kind of like, this is super weird. And then come to find out, the girl's just dreaming all this. She's still locked in the basement. It's still the same night, and all this bad stuff is happening still. So
it was like her way to like disassociate, essentially.
Yeah, it kind of shows you what like disassociation would look like, to somebody that has gone through a traumatic experience.
She like
fantasized
that his whole life to escape what she was going through in the house.
Yes, exactly. And so then the movie continues. They end up out of the basement, and the guy, the mom of this fat man, she's like dressing them up as like these dolls, and then he comes in and plays with them like dolls, and it's super
creepy,
uncomfortable and weird. When you're watching it, they end up escaping. They get away from them. They like see these troopers. They're flagging them down, and then as soon as they're about to like make contact with the troopers, here comes the mom behind them, shoots the troopers, grabs the girls, takes them back, and it all starts over again. But then I think they were able to, somehow the cops got there. They were able to radio in. I think one of the troopers was able to radio in what was like happening before they got shot. And the cops come and they kill them, and they, they go on and live their lives. And she ends up becoming an author and writing this book called The Incident in Ghostland.
Right.
And that's the movie. So it's kind of like a 360, I guess. It comes full circle because she had to experience this to write basically an autobiography about herself.
It's like a plot twist too when you find out she's just dreaming all of that stuff. It's such a plot twist.
Yeah, it is. It's super weird. It's a good plot twist.
She got away, and then the contrast of her still sitting in the basement dressed as a doll is just crazy.
I know, and it's weird too because she's a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan, and she's sitting there like when she's older in her delusion, and she's like talking to H.P. Lovecraft. Or somebody that looks very similar to him, and she actually says, "Yes, I am." Her H.P. Lovecraft, and so it was kind of weird because then you're like, "Okay, this is weird. Why is H.P. Lovecraft still alive? He died almost 100 years ago." So
how could she be talking to him?
And it was like right when it she comes out of comes into her dreamlike thing. So it's definitely a great movie. I think it did pretty. It doesn't say.
I don't think it got a theater release.
No, it didn't. It came out in Canada and France only, and obviously made its way to America and around the world. But yeah, I'm not sure if it got a theater release. I think it came right on to Netflix, actually.
It went on Netflix recently.
Shudder. I think it was a Shudder release.
It's one of those movies though that you want to rewatch and be like, could I have picked up on this the first time? Could I have picked up on all these scenes or just her delusion?
Right, exactly. Because it definitely throws you for a good one when she comes out of it. You're like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, holy crap.
It takes you a second to realize what's going on, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I mean, it might not make some people feel uncomfortable watching it because there are some scenes in it that are very,
Yeah, I had to look away a couple parts, but overall, definitely
just
recommend
cringy.
It's a good movie. Just cringy,
Yeah, but it's a very good film, and I think everybody should watch it because it is. I think it has to say a lot on mental health too, and what people that have gone through wicked bad incidents like this,
what your brain will do.
Yeah, what your brain does to defend itself, and defend you ultimately,
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's definitely a good watch. Go give it a watch.
So my next movie I picked is The Crazies, which came out in 2010, and it's similar to The Bay in the sense that, people start kind of losing it or having, something happen to them after a polluted water supply.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually a direct remake of a movie with the same title that came out in 1973 by George Romero, and he did the 2010 film as well.
No kidding.
Which the movies are pretty similar, except for the way the water gets polluted, and I guess in the 1973 version, which is kind of scary, the crazies, the people that were polluted by the water, look the same as everyone else.
Oh, really?
And in the newer version, you can kind of tell that they're sick. Their veins are kind of popping out, their faces are kind of blue.
Sure.
But I guess in the 1973 version, they just looked like everybody else.
Oh,
which
no
is
kidding.
even scarier.
Right. I don't think I've seen the original one.
I don't think I've seen it either, but we should watch it.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, it's set place in a fictional town in the middle of Iowa, and there's like a swamp, and a helicopter was flying over the swamp, and it crashed accidentally. So there's a dead pilot in the swamp and a full helicopter. And I guess this helicopter was carrying this,
it's like a biological weapon.
Yes, like biological warfare called Trixie, essentially. So when he crashed into their swamp, it goes into their drinking source.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts polluting this whole town, which the town only has like 1,000 people. So once people start getting polluted by it, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And it makes them essentially just, I don't even know, homicidal, I guess is the best way I can say it.
Yeah, it was like they just kind of like weren't there.
Yeah, there's just like nothing was there.
They would start killing for some reason. It was like they were just like in a daze, but they were like violent.
Yeah. And like the opening scene of this movie is this man walking onto a high school baseball game, and he has a loaded shotgun.
Yeah.
Ready to kill everybody, essentially.
Yeah.
And the sheriff has to go over and shoot him, but he's like, and he thought he was drunk at first, but then no alcohol is found in the system. They end up escalating it down and figure out it's the water supply, but this is another one where the U.S. government, never disappoints.
Yeah.
Essentially, they, instead of quarantining, those who are sick and those who are not sick, they end up just bombing the whole town.
Yeah, with like some sort of like small range nuke or something.
Yeah, it looks like a nuclear bomb when it goes off, and they don't even give anybody a chance to escape. They give them the idea that they're going to escape, and then, they load the buses and they just burn them all alive.
Yeah, they burn them and shoot them.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like some Holocaust type of stuff. It's terrible.
They're given, like, direct orders from the government, don't let anybody go, and, the main character, he's the sheriff, his wife is the doctor of the
town doctor, yeah.
And they're trying to escape, and they're basically, it's a good movie. It's, like, high suspense, and there's some good kill scenes in this, too.
Yeah,
and some very gut-wrenching scenes. Like, there's a scene where the dad, he, like, burns the whole house down after he locks his wife and son in a closet.
Yeah, and then,
he just has no expression.
Yeah, he's just doing it, and then, like, the cop shows up, and he's mowing the grass outside after he just lit his house on fire. So it's like, it goes to show, like, they are just kind of, like, there's nothing there. It's just, like, these homicidal tendencies, which is super weird, to just
weird.
have a biological weapon do that to you.
I know, like, The Bay makes a little bit more sense, because I could see something like a parasitic agent, but then this is some kind of, but I guess we don't understand all biological warfare, so who knows? I mean,
yeah, it could be something very similar to that.
It could be some kind of, like, psychological agent that just makes you, I guess, angry.
Yeah, attacks, like, your brain, you know.
Maybe it attacks, like, an aspect of your brain where you go after people.
Yeah, they don't really say exactly what it is. They say it's this thing called Trixie, which is a biochemical agent, that is supposed to destabilize populations, which it definitely does.
It's some, like, prototype that they haven't, like, tweaked everything out of yet, but it just causes, like, really bizarre behavior and goes directly into the water supply, so these people are trying to escape the town, and it's very good, high suspense.
Yeah, it's kind of like an action kind of movie too, I guess.
Yeah, like post-apocalyptic almost.
Yeah, definitely like apocalyptic and zombie almost.
And scary and, like, realistic. Like, this could happen. Like, the government messes with stuff.
Yeah, and they got biological weapons.
100%. So, I mean, it probably has happened. They probably covered it
up. There's been, I'm sure I'm not going to say too much, but I remember reading about this thing they did in France in the 70s with, like, LSD, like, poisoning this whole entire town's water supply. Basically, I think that's where he got the idea for the movie, was what they did, the CIA did in the 70s in France.
Yeah, I guess the 1973 version is a little bit different. I think the guy that spreads it is just, like, driving through the town on a motorcycle, and then he spreads it that way. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't think it's in the water supply. It's something different.
Oh, no kidding.
But I like the water supply idea, because, like I said earlier, you cut off somebody's water supply, you're going to destabilize the population anyway.
Yeah, that is true, too, yeah.
I mean, what else are they going to do?
Right. Alright, so for my next one, I picked 2008's Lake Mungo. So this is an Australian...
it's a found footage, right?
Found footage film. It's a psychological horror film. So basically, it starts out with this girl, or she's with her family, and she drowns like immediately. That's what it like opens up with, and it's kind of like a documentary too, because there's like a news crew interviewing the family at the same time. So it's like bouncing around from like news footage, home footage, and then kind of like interview style, footage. So it starts out with her, the 16-year-old girl Alice, drowning, and then. So, they mourn the death and everything, but they start, like, noticing there's some weird stuff happening around the house. So the little brother sets up cameras, and they start, like, capturing photos of, like, Alice, in these photos. So they're like, oh, my God, So that's where the documentary crew gets involved. They think it's a haunted house thing now. So they get, like, they want to do, like, a documentary about the ghosts and everything like that. So after that all starts happening, the little brother confesses to altering the photos and putting Alice in those images. So you're kind of like, okay, that's weird. And this whole movie, it's very slow burn.
Super slow burn, yeah.
But you really got to watch it because it sort of makes a lot of sense, but it also doesn't at the same time. So you start to so he admits to that, but the mom's still kind of convinced that there's something there. So she hires this psychic, and he's trying to get ask if she's there, and then he ends up confessing that Alice actually came to him months before she died, that she was concerned that she was going to die. So that's another twist in the movie. So I'm not going to give away the ending, but I feel like I have to. So basically, they end up finding some stuff about Alice. You kind of get to know Alice, not actually seeing her or ever meeting her, but you get to know it through the family, through home videos and stuff like that, and footage. They end up finding a videotape in her room that Alice was having a threesome with the neighbors and the neighbor husband and wife that she babysat for, and so you start to these clues, you don't know a lot about Alice, and all of a sudden this happens, and you're like, whoa, what the heck? This is super weird. What's going on? And then they find this footage from her cell phone, and it shows her on a school trip at Lake Mungo, and she's walking around at night, and she's then all of a sudden it's she starts running. She's being chased by something, and she you catch a glimpse of it on her phone, and it's a picture of her, all dead and bloated, how they found her at the dam,
Yep.
So then it kind of comes full circle, and that's kind of where the movie ends, and it's kind of what? Yeah. What just happened? And it's been a huge debate. There's a huge debate with this movie, what the meaning is, and I think really it's kind of left up to the viewer. It's what it makes a lot of sense to her. I read this good thing today, researching it. I'm it's what do you do when you know you're going to die? That's kind of what this movie was trying to put together. Did Alice really know she was going to die?
Yeah,
and
that's what she was running from.
Yeah, and it's inevitable. I mean, we're all going to die, but she actually saw how she was going to die. So it's she's trying to is she trying to escape it? Is she trying to do something to prevent it? And you're kind of trying to figure that out. After the movie ends, you're going back. Was there something in the hidden messages or something that we missed in the movie?
That's ranked as one of the best jump scenes or scare scenes too. When you see that it's her chasing her dead body,
yes, her, yeah, it's a great movie. Again, it's a slow burn. You kind of got to watch it. I did not do a good job describing it because it's kind of hard to describe because there's a lot of different.
It's hard. There are a lot of aspects to it. Yeah.
But essentially, it's basically knowing that you're gonna die, and it also deals with grief and closure with someone dying too, because it's what's the family doing to try to get closure? They're hiring psychics. They got to, they think there's a ghost. They think she's still there, and it's no, she's really not anymore. And there was never really any ghost except for at the very end. I think of the movie, you see there's a photograph taken when they move out of the house, and you see Alice, and now she's stuck in that house now forever. You see her ghosts, so she was always there, but I think that was the closure, was letting her go and letting her stay at the house. Yeah. So it's definitely a really good movie.
Because pursuing all those aspects, it's not really closure. Trying to talk to her, trying to get.
Yes, you're not really trying to get
rest.
Yeah, and they weren't getting anything either from it. It was all these other little minute things that were kind of ultimately going to get the closure.
Right. Okay, so for my last movie, I picked The Possession of Michael King. Do you remember this movie?
Mm-hmm.
It came out in 2014, and it's a found footage movie. And essentially it's about the main guy, his name's Michael, obviously. And his wife dies in like some tragic work accident. And it's him, his wife, and his daughter in the beginning. And essentially his wife was like super into the psychic, and she was very religious. I believe she was into Christianity. And the psychic had told her to like stay home that day from work. And she stayed home, and that's how she got killed. Was like doing something for work at home. I don't know, it was kind of confusing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he basically, after his wife dies, he vows to... I'm sorry, I should back up. He's an atheist, like complete atheist, doesn't believe in anything.
Yeah.
She was very religious, believed in psychics, all that good stuff. And then after he died, she died, it only kind of fueled his hatred for these things, because it was like, well, she believed in all this, and she still died in a tragic way.
Right.
And like the psychic itself, you know, like I don't believe in any of that. So he kind of becomes like his own documentary filmmaker, and it's a unique concept for sure. He like challenges all these different religions and does all these different rituals and like seances to try to challenge, you know, darker entities.
Yeah, just like trying to prove it's not real.
He's trying to prove it's not real.
Yeah.
So he's like, you know, take me, possess me, do whatever you want to me. I'm like opening himself up to all these different religions, all these different like, dark entities or demons, whatever.
Right.
And he wants to be the first person to prove on film. He's like, well, you know, if I don't get possessed, then I can prove it's not real. And if I do, then I guess I can prove it is real.
Sure.
He's kind of like, I have nothing to lose at this point.
Right.
Well, you know, he does become possessed, and the movie is just... I like it because it shows first person, like the possessed person's point of view.
Right.
Usually in horror movies, you see the possessed person as the villain, and you're trying to run away from them. But this shows like an actual vlog documentary of a possessed person.
You're right, somebody that's undergoing possession.
And, you know, like he tries to run away, and like a pentagram gets carved into his chest. There's one scene, which I was talking about the fingernail earlier.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't have any feeling left in his body, and he takes a needle and like puts it underneath his thumb.
I hated that. That was like, I remember watching that, I'm like, oh my god.
And he's like, I don't even feel any pain anymore, I don't feel anything.
And he's like documenting it like very well too. And it's like, you know, okay, today this happened, I lost feeling here.
Yep. And there was he started to have like anger towards others, so he handcuffed himself to the bed because he's like, I don't want to hurt anybody. Well, his friend came over and saw him like that and was like, what the hell? So he undid his handcuffs, and he ended up killing like his babysitter or something. And then there's a scene where he's like trying to strangle his daughter and even try to kill her because he's possessed.
Right.
But yeah, this is definitely a unique movie, and like he keeps trying to kill himself, and this entity won't let him kill himself because he's just been fully possessed and taken over. And it's like, no, we're using your body now. You gave us full reign to your body, so now we're going to use it. You're not going to kill yourself now.
Exactly.
And he tries everything he can do. His house gets trashed. I mean, there's like pentagrams everywhere from where he did all these seances.
Yeah. And he ends up killing, right? He ends up dying.
He ends up dying at the end. Yeah, I think while he's strangling his daughter, his wife like actually comes through to him as an angel and gets him to jump out the window.
Yeah.
And as he's jumping out the window, his wife's like speaking to him and saying like, we're together now, it's gonna be okay.
Right.
Very sad movie, but unique for sure, because you don't see people... Cool. Usually horror movies are trying to run from the demon. This guy is like, take me.
Yeah, and it's like cool how it's like documenting too. And yeah, that's the other thing, is he's like opening himself up to it, you know, willingly.
It's first person. You don't ever see the possessed person's point of view, really. You know, what they're going through.
Right.
It's usually like their family member seeing it or somebody running away from them, but he's saying, yeah, this is happening to me, I'm losing feeling, I can't even kill myself, I can't do anything, you know?
Yeah, no, I definitely like that movie. It was definitely a different type of possession film.
I think it's on Amazon Prime if anybody wants to check it out. A little
I think it might be on Tubi too.
Yeah, a couple disturbing, unsettling parts, like the fingernail thing for sure.
Oh yeah.
And like just watching his physical self deteriorate is kind of concerning. But
no, I definitely
overall,
agree.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, there were definitely some scenes in there.
Some cringy scenes.
Alright, if my computer will load here, my last film, hang on, let me try it again. My last film is 1994's The Cemetery Man. And it was directed by Michael Sauvé, the same guy that did The Church. This one's a horror comedy. I love this movie. It's a, I don't know really what the...
What do you find?
Yeah, I don't know why mine's not working. Thanks. So, this is a really good one. So it was directed by Michael Sauvé, and it stars Rupert Everett. I don't know how to say this person's name. Anna Falchi. Francois Hadito Lazaro.
Oh,
it's based off a novel titled Della Morte della More. And so essentially this movie is this guy, he's a graveyard caretaker,
right.
Francisco Della Morte, and he works at a small Italian cemetery where the dead come back to life.
Of course, of course.
And his job is to kill the dead when they rise from the grave again. And he works with his mentally disabled assistant, Nahi, I think is how you say it, Nagi. And so basically it's kind of like a comedy movie. There are some silly like things that happen in the movie. Like he sees this beautiful woman like that's mourning the loss of her like way older, counterpart that has died. Like she's clearly a gold digger. And he like they fall in love, and they have sex on top of his grave, and then immediately like after they're done, he like the husband rises from the grave, bites her. He's like, oh my God, no, I fell in love with you. And then so he's like waiting for her to rise next so he can shoot her. And that's basically all the movie is. There's really not like there is a good plot to it, but that's essentially all that happens is he's just like this guy that's,
I can see that
he's just taking care of the cemetery and making sure the dead don't come back to life.
Obviously.
So it's a good movie. Definitely got to go watch it. I'm not going to really go much more into it. It's just, you got to go watch it. It's a good movie. I think you can find it on Shudder. Has it out now, actually. So I'm probably actually going to rewatch it one of these days too, because I don't really remember a whole entire lot about it. But yeah, definitely go give it a look, guys.
Yeah, I hope we showed you guys some like underrated classics that you can go and check out. Definitely recommend Tubi, like I said earlier. A lot of these are on there. But yeah, until then, do you have anything else to say?
No, just stay spooky, guys, and we'll see you next time.